I'm Mario Martinez Jr., CEO and founder of Vengreso, and we are the creators of FlyMessage.io, the free personal writing assistant and text expander application. On each episode of this podcast, you will hear from sales leaders, practitioners, and influencers to help you grow your sales numbers at scale. So, get your pen and paper or iPad and keyboard and start taking notes as you're now listening to the Modern Selling Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Modern Selling Podcast. And I am pumped about this topic of conversation we're having with my friend, Mr. David Weiss. He is the CRO of the Sales Collective, and we're going to be talking all about early stage growth companies, when to hire your first salesperson, when to get your first VP of sales, what should you look for, how do you have everything in place before you pull the trigger, and turning it into from founder-led sales to a scalable sales model. David, welcome to the show, my man.
Mario, thanks for having me on, man. I'm super excited for this conversation, so appreciate you.
Absolutely. Well, it's been long overdue. For those of you that don't know, I love tracking my connections, and David and I connected back in 2016. Yes, it was 2016, but the best part about it was months after I started my first company, which was later merged into Vengreso. And we've been connected since then, and I'm super sad that I didn't have you on the show beforehand. I don't know if that was my fault or if it was your fault, but either way, I got you.
Things are pretty much always my fault, so don't worry about that. It was like the early days of LinkedIn. No, I mean LinkedIn's been around for a while, but
it was definitely the early days when we were doing a lot more sales prospecting training for sure on LinkedIn, which we still have today at Vengreso through our Fly Message Sales Pro Plan. But nonetheless, David, great to have you. Do me a favor. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Sales Collective. And then I've got a very interesting and important question for you.
All right, cool. So David Weiss, live in Houston, Texas. Got a 9-year-old who's awesome. Been in sales for like, way too long, 15, 20 years. I feel like it's a lifetime. Currently, Chief Revenue Officer, Sales Collective, works for notable organizations, sales, Seismic and Outreach and ADP and Career Builder and all those things. But, for the last probably 6-7 years, I've kind of made it my ethos to like get out of bed every single day just to help the sales community. So, I mean, I post every day on LinkedIn, I write blogs, I create apps, I just try and help sellers sell better. So today I'm Chief Revenue Officer of a sales coaching, training, process building, assessing, hiring organization where, now I get to do what I love doing every day, which is help organizations, do all those things. So that's me.
Fantastic. And now my question for you is, I want something juicy. I'm looking for something juicy, man. Tell us something nobody knows about you, even if they're looking at any or all of your social profiles.
Ooh, so I've definitely struggled. Like it was a few years back. I'm like super blessed and lucky. My wife has her PhD in psychology. She is a stress and anxiety therapist. And it was a few years back. I was dealing with probably, can I swear on the show? I'm going to anyways. Like a super shitty boss. And I worked for this individual for about a year. And I got like massively burnt out, like heart palpitations, physical distress, couldn't sleep. Like it was really, really like, it was bad. And I've mentioned that some places, but what, the juicy, the big thing about this and the thing that I want to share with the audience there is, it took me 2 to 3 years to kind of come out of that, like years, not days, not months, not weeks, years. And like it was years until I got like the full spark back, the full energy back. Like and it was a road, man. It was hard. Like I made progress, but to get back to the baseline that I was at before I started working for that individual, it was a multi-year journey. It was hard. So I can unpack that for longer and how it all impacts and what I did and all that stuff. But that's definitely something I don't talk about often, is like the length of time and how much that hurt.
I appreciate you sharing that. And that's a very vulnerable position to be in, of course, to talk about these types of situations from a career standpoint. But I would argue that there's a lot of sellers and leaders that have experienced very much the same thing. And we oftentimes don't talk about it because many times from a male perspective, we don't want to talk about it. We don't show anybody what happened. We don't want to, to bring up those things. It's not important. It's no big deal, right? We underplay this, but
I'm an open book.
What's that?
I'm an open book.
No, and I appreciate that because it's not a topic we talk about enough. And I definitely have gone on the path that you were on, but never down that far in terms of the path. So that's pretty awesome to share that. What's interesting though is what do you think was the cause? Was it all emotional? Was it mental? Was it physical? Or was it a combination of all of those things?
Yeah, man, it was definitely all of them. Like the concepts of gaslighting, where and people get this all wrong, but gaslighting is essentially making you feel like you're crazy. The combination between nothing ever being good enough, significant verbal abuse, hitting goals and having everyone around you tell you you're great, but then this person who's your boss, who's supposed to have your back, constantly berating you, backstabbing you, playing political games around the people, like, essentially mobilizing people against you within the organization. Like it was purposeful. It was strategic. It was borderline evil. Like if you read like the 48 Laws of Power, like this dude was like around me. And it was just really tough because I loved where I was. I loved my team. I loved the organization. There was, we were the number 1 team the year before. There was so much there that was good, and that was just the one. Like, and it was just a mental F. Like, the cognitive distortion between the two, and then nothing ever like it. And it was all of that. So like there was just so much to it.
I appreciate that. Well, we could have a whole other podcast, I'm sure, on this topic. Absolutely. But one of the things I actually, it kind of tying right into this topic here that I want to spend some time talking about, and that is founder-led growth versus sales-led growth, right?
And dude, that's why I got, by the way, that's why I got into startups. That's why I left the big corporate world. So I think it's really timely that transition to that. So anyways, yeah, please keep going.
So that actually, that's one of the things I was kind of comment on, is because inside of corporate, I left at a time where when I started at a company, we had 80,000 employees. When I left, we had 40,000 employees. And the next company I went to, I took a package again because they were shrinking as well. And I got to the point where I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't lay off another person. I couldn't be the hatchet guy that walked into a big giant office with 400 cubes inside there, and you would sit there and you would invite each person into an office or to a conference room, or you go from conference room to conference room, and you're out, you're in, you're out, you're in. I just couldn't do it anymore. And that's one of the reasons why I opened up my own company, because I was burned out on the amount of times that I had to lay somebody off.
Yeah.
So this is interesting though, because I immediately moved into a founder-led sales model, which I love selling, and I've been doing it for 25 years, right? So let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you've seen with companies moving from founder-led growth to a scalable sales model. What are some of the things that you've seen?
Yeah, man. So there's a couple things. There's often an overestimation on the founder of the organization being able to sell a product and their ability to then disseminate that down. Just because the founder can sell it doesn't mean everyone else or anyone else, frankly, could. They will never be able to replicate the passion, the vision, the story, the pain that caused them to ultimately likely create the thing they created. And they also, suffer from this crux of deep belief in the product before it's ready. And also, just because there's 10, 20, 50, 100 people, maybe even, that like it and even are willing to use it, doesn't mean there's true scalable product market fit. So, my experience is some of the big challenges is they overinvest in sales and before strongly investing in either marketing or product development and IT resources, engineering resources, because they think that, okay, I got this thing, I convinced a bunch of people to buy it. I'm now ready to hire a bunch of sellers, scale a team, and everybody's going to want it, and now we're all good. That's probably arguably one of the biggest challenges is that piece there of overestimating the product market fit before it's ready.
So over investing in sales before product market fit.
Yep.
And over investing in sales, and when we say sales, I mean sales people, sales teams, etc.
Teams, tech, all those things. Yeah.
So technology, people, processes, but you said something else. It was before product market fit. Totally get that. But the other one was over investing in sales before marketing.
Yep.
So let's tease about both of those items there. Talk to me first define product market fit for those that are listening in.
Yep.
I am insanely in tune with this. Define that. And then I'd like you to talk a little bit about how do you recognize product market fit? If it's not 100 people, then what does that number look like?
Yeah, and that's kind of why I was mentioning and there's probably a lot of definitions here, and I don't think there's a right one. So I'm not going to say what my definition is correct. But what I will say is one of the reasons why I mentioned marketing, because if you're, putting the problem you solve out there, well, you're writing blogs on it, you're, creating a really nice, compelling website, you're doing some, PLG, you're giving it away for free, you're giving trials, you're doing those things. If you have product market fit, people are coming to you. They're like, I didn't know this existed. I need this, or at the very least, I want to try this and I'm willing to, adopt it. When salespeople sell it or present it, it's a need to have. You can see the light bulb. You can see people saying, I got to try this. I got to try this right now. There's energy behind it. You kind of know when there's not product market fit, when you kind of have to like convince people to give it a try, or the response to it is, oh, that's interesting. That's when like you're like, maybe I need to invest a little bit more on the product side of things, or maybe I need to invest a little bit more on the marketing side of things, because we're not seeing the conversion rates, we're not seeing the excitement, we're not seeing the trials that lead to a purchase. We're not seeing those signals at a high enough kind of velocity.
Fair enough. Okay, so a lot of founders always ask, well, how many buyers do I need for product market fit? Like how many subscribers? And especially since we've been in raising capital here at Vengreso, which we just closed out our pre-seed round, and now moving into our seed round. This has been an interesting question that you talk about with venture capitalists. Well, what does product market fit look like? Especially if they say, I'm not sure if you found product market fit. Well, define for me product market fit. Well, you should be having, several hundreds worth of paying customers and, thousands of freemium customers, and then converting those customers and people, actually wanting to buy. Okay. So it was interesting is early on in this process, a couple of VCs said to me, you need at least 100 buyers, right? 100 people that convert. So I got 100 people in 30 days, came back to them and they moved the cheese. I said, well, actually it's really more to 200 to 500. That'll really show that you've got, a good solid traction. So I came back to them and 45 days later and had 375. And then they said, well, that was the low. What you really need to see is if you can scale this to 500,000. And then I said, no, that's it. I'm done. We're not going to keep moving the cheese. You can move the cheese on me once, but you're not going to move it 2 or 3 times. But interestingly enough, what I appreciated about that definition is it gave me at least new milestones to be thinking about, right? 100 customers turns into 350, which turns into 500, which turns into, and now you got to be thinking about, okay, as I bring on all these freemium customers in a product-led growth model, how many of them am I converting? So product market fit, whether it's an enterprise player, whether it's PLG or whether it's hybrid, has, to your point, a different definition for everyone.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it comes down to, in my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, David, in my opinion, are you making money every single month? Meaning, are you producing sales revenue every single month from those clients that you're reaching out to the golly, sorry. Try that again. From those clients that you're reaching out to converting, and then how long does that take?
Yeah.
Tell me what you're thinking on that.
Yeah, and I think you're kind of seeing the fallacy in the number. Because to me the numbers, and I mean, yeah, you reach a certain threshold, you got product market fit. You have there's a number out there. I'm not prophetic and saying if you hit this exact number, it's the answer. But there's, to me, it's more the behavior. How hard are you working to get every client? How long is it taking to get every client? Are clients referring you to others? Like, people know people. If you've got product market fit, people are calling you saying, hey, Mario, I know Joe. Joe loves you guys. I got to use you. Like, there's those types of, it's buzz, it's momentum. Cycles are condensing. People are coming to you. Those are, to me, the real signals. You can have a lot of vanity metrics. Like, I was working at an organization that or consulting for an organization that felt like they had product market fit. They wanted to hire 3 salespeople. I helped them do it. They had about 100 customers. That team of 3 salespeople, I helped them build their process. I helped them get ramped up and trained. They went ahead and set 168 meetings in the first 45 days of working there, and they converted absolutely 0. So, like, to me, again, 100 customers, things were good. Founder thought it was great, wanted to scale. They didn't have product market fit yet. So I mean, that to me is like the hidden triggers there. If you're starting to have lots of conversations, but it's nice to haves, not need to haves, there's something going on there.
Okay. And you mentioned we overinvest in the sales tools, technology, people, or process, sorry, tools, process, and people before we've invested in marketing. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, one, sales needs to be armed with the stories, the collateral, they need to, when you're a new product, you're not just going to take the salesperson's word for it. You're going to go do research. You're going to go look them up. The website needs to be compelling. But also on the flip side, again, if you've got a great product, there should be a degree of either PLG motion or high levels of branding, or people should be seeing you in the marketplace and coming to you, and that funnel should be starting to appear inside of lead forms, inside of things like that. It's marketing driven. If marketing isn't stood up, your salespeople are potentially just going out there, and then customers are going to research and be like, who are these people? Or you're frankly just hiring sales too early, because there's not enough buzz in the market yet around your product to then scale something. Like, you've got nothing to scale yet. It's like build the brand, then drive people to it. You're not at the drive people to it yet phase.
Got it. Couldn't agree with you more. And that is why I believe that this era that we live in now is so much easier to market into. Now, let me clarify what I mean by that. Because most marketers who are listening to this podcast right now would be like, are you kidding me? It's the hardest time to do marketing right now ever. But what I mean by that is most founders make the mistake of not leveraging themselves. And the most passionate people that speak about the product, technology, the vision is the founder themselves.
Yep.
And if you're not out there speaking about it, recording short videos, drumming up interest, creating conversations out there by using free tools called LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, right? Using these free tools to be able to drum up that interest, and then learning how to use hashtags as an example to be found in these areas, which is, by the way, super easy. 30 hashtags for Instagram, a handful for TikTok, find the trending ones. On LinkedIn, you can type in hashtag, whatever it might be, the word, see how many followers there are to that particular network. It's the first 3 that count. And Twitter, you can use however many that you want, right? So I just think that founders need to be leading this marketing effort and not sit there and say, oh my God, well, I got to develop a whole website and then have a 500 blogs on there and then do the Google SEO thing. Yes, you do, but you can drum up so much business just by talking and getting out there yourself.
Yeah, you should. I like to think a lot of, and it's one of the things I'm working on with the sales collective right now is no matter where someone goes, I'm trying to have them see us. So whether it's podcasts, webinars, we're starting our own, podcast for frontline sales leaders here soon. Blog posts, LinkedIn, SEO strategy, in the future, LinkedIn, advertising, SEM strategy, like it's just everywhere people are going. I want them in some way, shape, or form to see us because that honestly, like, it's not hard to do these days. And from a social trust perspective, consciously or subconsciously, they just need to see you lots of places. And if they see you in lots of different channels, they just naturally have a higher degree of trust for you and your brand than if they see you in one or another. So like to your point, this is table stakes these days. Like you have to be doing these things.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think companies need to do or prove out before they hire their first salesperson? And I get this a lot from business owners. I'm not a good salesperson. I need to hire a sales guy or gal. I really need some sales assistants, and I need somebody that can really take this from cradle to grave. But there are so many things that you need to make sure of first before that first salesperson. So talk a little bit about what do companies need to prove out or have before they hire their first salesperson?
So look, product market fit and marketing, like have those 2 things, and then have a founder that's really willing to invest the time. The first sales hire is going to be critical, and you need to hire someone that has just ridiculous levels of grit and persistence and adaptability to just change. Like the startups I've been part of, it was like a weekly pivot. Like there's always something new being done. Addition to the product, change in motion, strategy. Like they need to be just highly adaptable, and just willing to deal with tons of setback and just, man, I hate to say it, but just grit and hard work. Like so much of startup culture is just grit and hard work because like you're going to face more rejection. Like the seller that was the star at the largest player in the space is likely your worst possible hire because they're going to rely on the brand. They're used to being told, yes, they're used to people calling them. Like there's so much of that. Like you want the gritty fighter that's just willing to stick with you, and that can deal with all that. So like product market fit, marketing, and then find really the right seller. Like find someone that does have all the skills to do the job, but that's super gritty.
What about things like you got to have your ICP, right? And some of the messaging that you mentioned. Before you can build messaging, you need to know who your customer persona is, right? Your individual customer persona. Are those things important to have before you get your first salesperson?
I think there's some really basic stuff. Like you want to ramp that person up well. Document what's in your brain. So look at the customers you've been able to sell. What trends are you seeing? What size? What industry? How many employees do they have? What are common threads of the problem that you solve for them? Like look at that. Then look at like how'd you get those meetings? And frankly, talk to those customers. Why'd you buy from us? Why do you stay? Why would you recommend us? What can we improve? What problem did we really solve? What did we promise you? What did you get from it? Like some impact type stuff. Interview them, ask those questions. And then, okay, cool. Look for trends. All right, now I kind of have a feeling of who we should be selling to. Then look at like, who are the users? Who is the buyer? Okay, now I kind of know the personas. You interviewed them. Now I've got some idea of the messaging. What problem did we solve? How much of that problem did we solve? What was the impact? Why'd they buy? Why'd they stay? Why would they recommend you? That's now your messaging. That's your value story. Have some of those kind of key elements documented. understand like the differentiators. So when someone has that, have some of that documented. Like, who are they going to run into? Who do you constantly see that also does something similar? How do you overcome some of those objections? How do you, value wedge and position yourself within, the space as the differentiator and why people should buy from you versus them. Have some of those kind of core elements ready. There's so much of that that's going to change and evolve. So you don't want to be so super rigid with everything that you're like, this is the way, this is the only way, like that. There needs to be a degree of flexibility and learning that takes place. But to ramp that person up, one of the biggest things founders struggle with is they don't document that stuff. And they get on a call like this and they just share like, all right, say this, or watch me in this meeting or do these things. And it's like, okay, but what do I do after that? And then by having it documented, people can like read it and study it and have just another way of digesting the information when you may be not around or they may be tired or what have you. So, it's that.
And another interesting tip that I would give in addition to what you said is while you're asking these customers, why did you buy? What did you like? What did we deliver? What's working well for you? What's not? Ask them if you could record some of these items and use it as customer testimonials.
Yeah, why not?
And then share it on social media, right? It's amazing to me how many customer meetings that we have that we actually don't take the time to record those meetings and then ask the customer, can I use your good words? Can I use the words about your experience out on social media? Absolutely. Most customers would say yes. And it's funny to me how we forget about that. It's an interesting stat here, David. When we had Vengreso as a sales prospecting training company only, right? That's all we did pre-August of 2022. Between April of 2017 and August of 2022, kid you not, we never, ever, ever gave a customer as a reference.
Wow, nice.
Not one single reference did we have to give. Now, this doesn't mean that we weren't asked. We were asked many times, I'd like to speak to a customer to talk about the results. And our answer, just like I'm not going to burden you when you sign on with us, I'm not going to burden everybody else with the same exact thing. Because here's what we did. And here's what I have for you. I've got 25 case studies that you can look at from the largest to the smallest. 4 pages tells you everything. And I've got 100 videos of customers that have said, we love you, we love this, we love that. And on top of that, not only do I, but each of my co-founders have over 100 LinkedIn recommendations. You have enough data to make your decision.
That should hopefully be enough. Exactly.
Yeah, and it was. And some customers, well, we have to speak with somebody. I'm sorry, that's not going to happen because I'm not going to burden another customer. I do these things to unburden their time. They're running their business. You have enough data. If that's not good enough, I understand. We'll move on. Is that good enough? No. Thank you very much. We exited out of the conversation. So I really believe that founders, and by the way, we never lost a deal. Never. In enterprise, mid-market, small business, never lost a deal because we couldn't give a reference.
Yep.
Yeah. And because we had all the data. And so I think founders need to be thinking about this with moving into sales-led growth, meaning an individual selling for you on behalf of the founder. You've got to have the things that you just mentioned, which is the marketing side. Have those case studies, have the testimonial videos. And it's not that expensive to be able to get those things done. It costs you nothing to record on Zoom, and it may cost you $150, $200 to use someone from Fiverr to make that video look sexy.
Yeah, and honestly, people don't even care how sexy the video looks. Like they don't mind the conversation that's fairly real. But to your point, hey, look, if you can make it look nice and it's low cost, why not?
Absolutely. Well, let's pretend now we get to the point where we've addressed product market fit. We have enough customers that are buying. We understand our ICP, individual customer persona, and we've defined that. We know our sweet spot is small business up to 200 employees. I don't know, I'm just making it up. We've got our messaging aligned. We've got case studies. We've got video testimonials. Even if they're not on our website, we have them on our YouTube, which, by the way, costs $0 to be able to host on YouTube, $0. Now we're ready to hire our first salesperson to help us grow and scale. What do you look for, and what needs to be ready for them when considering hiring your first salesperson?
Yeah, so I mean, we definitely talked a lot about all those materials being ready, so they have to be ready. one of the things that I look for, we talked about like the grit and things, but there's also basic skill sets. So like there's personality assessments and there's skill-based assessments. Highly recommend using a skills-based assessment like objective management groups, OMG assessment. We were the number 3 reseller in the United States of that. But the whole thought there is like really make sure you hire someone with the right DNA, the right blueprint. So because it doesn't matter like what you provide to someone, if they're the wrong fit, we know what's going to happen. So then we're talking tools and tech. To me, table stakes, CRM, something like a sales engagement platform. Of course, something like Fly Message to make them, highly productive. Why wouldn't you have that? By the way, folks, you didn't pay me to say that, but it's a good solution. Why wouldn't you have Gong for conversational intelligence? So you can record calls and do coaching around them. To me, those are like your really basic table stakes. Provide them with the right information and training, provide them with the right tools and tech to be productive, and make sure you hire the right person. Like to me, those are the critical elements.
Okay, so I heard you on the qualities we're looking. You mentioned grit, and then you mentioned sales assessments or personality profile assessments.
Different.
Different. Okay, so tell me what you mean by the assessment.
So there's personality and there's skills. So many organizations use personality assessments. Predictive Index is one. I'm a certified trainer for them. But the problem with personality assessments is there is not a sales profile. You'll look at guys and like Jamal Reimer or Brandon Fluharty that we all know are $1 million earners. I'm friends with them. They will tell you they are introverts, they're deep thinkers, they're strategists, but they're some of the top performers. So many people would say, oh, no, I don't want to hire somebody like that. I'd rather hire an extrovert who just moves really fast and like, gets shit done. That's my profile. I wouldn't say hire me and don't hire one of those guys I mentioned. We could both be successful. So like there is no selling profile. There's maybe indicators, but where personality assessments are great is like, hey, help me understand this person. How are they going to show up? How are they going to fit into my culture? So they're not bad. They're not predictive of sales success. So my recommendation is use both. Use a personality assessment, use a skills-based one. Skills-based assessments will actually look at the core competencies of the job, discovery, consultative selling, negotiation, closing, need to be likable, willingness to challenge. Like, there, by the way, the objective management group, there's like 30 different line items on that thing of core competencies. But that's the difference. The difference is skills, because what you're ultimately hiring for is the person that can do the job. Those are skills. But salespeople are great. They're great at telling you how awesome they are. You need something to validate that's objective. So that's the thought of kind of marrying those things together.
And what was the name of the skills assessment that you referenced?
Objective management group. It's the OMG assessment. We call it the sales DNA. Like I said, we're the top 3 seller of it in the world.
The OMG. I like it. Okay, so we're looking at combining some skill assessment tools like OMG and predictive index, the PI for personality. Yep. The personality stuff will tell you whether or not they're a culture fit. The OMG stuff will tell you about their skills and whether or not they have a good skill fit for maybe the period that you're in. Yeah. For growth scale, retention, or are they account managers, or are they account executives? Are they hunters? Are they farmers? Right. So those are the things that you recommend be ready to do before you hire that person. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Okay. Now let's move on to, you mentioned this several times, documenting a sales process. When we talk about documenting a sales process, what are some of the key elements there?
So when you think about a sales process, it's, a lot of people think it's stages. And yes, there are stages in a sales process. By the way, I'm not a fan of naming a sales process by the action. So like discovery is not a stage. You're always doing discovery. Demo is not a stage. Negotiation is not a stage. So you really need to think about, the actions that are taking place versus the specific events, like what's going on in the business. So to me, stages are really poorly designed. But outside of just stages, because stages are not a sales process, they're just words, in a linear fashion of things that are going to happen. To me, a sales process is what happens in the stages. So part of your sales process, we talked about it, ideal customer profile. We talked about personas. We talked about discovery questions and objections and differentiation. We talked about like how you're going to demo, like the vignettes inside of it and the framework for the demo. We will, build things like negotiation and negotiation posture. We'll look at in something that really well, which is, how do we even prospect? Like, what are the personas? What's the messaging? What's the scripts? How do we, omni-channel, but also how do we thread it and spider it to like all these different personas at all these different levels with all this different messaging and the stories that we tell inside of it. So to me, that's actually a sales process. It's linear across, but then it's the activities that are happening that are well documented to say, if I enter this stage, here's exactly what I need to execute that stage perfectly, repeatably, every single time.
Roger that. Okay, got it. Makes sense on the sales process. Loved your staging things in terms of what's the next step and the next step and the next step. Yeah. One of the mistakes that I think we often make as founders, and we're kind of running short on time here, so I want to try to get a quick answer on this one.
Yeah.
Is we say we need a VP of sales as opposed to a sales account executive. Now, you might, not saying you're not saying you shouldn't, not saying you can't, but let's presume that you do need a VP of sales. Let's presume that you're not sure you need a VP of sales. When should someone, a CEO, founder, hire their first VP of sales?
Yeah, and this is one of the biggest problems I see them make. They build a little bit of process. They think that they've got product market fit. They got a little bit of marketing in place. I'm going to hire a VP of sales. I'm going to give them a budget to hire, 1, 2, 3, 5 salespeople, and we're ready to go. We're going to scale this thing. That to me is one of the biggest burners of money and failures of many startups that I see. Mm-hmm. And I argue you do not need a VP of sales until you have a successful seller. Until that salesperson can kind of execute the process you've put in place. Till that salesperson can source and close deals, you do not need a VP of sales. Mm. What you need a VP of sales for is to scale success. But if you hire that VP of sales and give them a budget, you know what's going to happen? They're going to hire these people. You're going to put them into this process. And all of a sudden, those people are not going to be successful. It's going to take months and months and months to ramp. There's going to be a shitload of failure along the way. They're going to rewrite the whole damn playbook because it wasn't working. And then now you've set your company back. You've destroyed your burn rate. And now all of a sudden, guess what? You're laying people off and you're condensing the team. So please, for the love of God, don't do that. Don't paint the pipe dream for some VP of sales who are going to come in and build this great magical thing. More often than not, that's going to fail. Get one salesperson that can sell your damn product well, then hire a VP to scale that process, that what is working, and fine tune it, make it work better.
I love it. Fantastic advice. Don't hire your VP of sales until you get your first successful salesperson, and then have that person scale that success. It makes super simple sense. Fabulous insights here, David. Thank you so much, bro. A couple questions for you. If someone wants to connect with you, is it Twitter, LinkedIn, email? What's the best way to be able to connect and engage with you?
Please don't tweet me. I'm a LinkedIn guy. I've narrowed it, and this is maybe stupid of me, but I've narrowed it to LinkedIn. That is my platform. That is where I am. I am hyper visible. Drop me a note. I will respond to you.
So make sure when you reach out to David that you send a personalized connection request message. Just click the add a note button and say, David, I heard you on the Modern Selling Podcast. And David, I got one last question for you, and that is your all-time favorite movie. What is it?
Oh man, so I've got like a couple here. I'm a huge nerd, so like Star Trek, like anything Star Trek, I freaking love, man. But if I was to like Desert Island, one movie, Thank You for Smoking. Have you seen?
I don't know if you even know that movie.
All right, so Thank You for Smoking is a movie about, and I think it's the all-time greatest movie about sales. It's definitely not, Boiler Room or Glenn Ross or, and any of the others you're probably thinking of. But it follows this dude, Nick Naylor, who is a lobbyist for the tobacco industry. And his whole job is to convince the public using the data from the Society of Tobacco Studies that smoking is not as bad for you as everybody thinks. And the reason why I love it is it's so much about command of the message, frame control, spin control, and it's just freaking fun. One of the best parts in the entire movie, he's talking to his son, whose name is Joey, and Joey is, a young kid on the debate team. And Joey's like, look, if someone came to you and said, which is the best flavor of ice cream? He'd be like, vanilla. And okay. And what's the opponent going to argue? Chocolate. So you guys are just going to spend all this time arguing about which vanilla or chocolate's better, right? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, that's an unwinnable argument. He's like, the only way you win that argument, my argument would be freedom of choice. I don't believe it is chocolate. I don't believe it is vanilla. I believe it's everyone's God-given right to have the freedom to choose which ice cream they want. And like that to me is like was such an interesting like solidification in my brain where it's like only choose arguments that you can't lose and frame them accordingly. So favorite movie of all time for that reason.
There you have it. Thank You for Smoking is David's favorite movie. Hey, all of you listening in right now, don't turn that dial because we've got this important message for you to listen to. Thanks for listening to the Modern Selling Podcast. Please do me a huge favor and give the Modern Selling Podcast a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. Oh, and don't forget, if you'd like to save 20 hours or more in a month and increase your productivity, go right now and download Fly Message, that's flymsg.io for free. It's your free text expander and personal writing assistant. Hey, thanks for listening in, and until the next episode, good selling.